Titan paused mid-performance, his breathing heavy, his gaze locked onto Steve. Something was off. Sensing the shift, Steve raised his hand gently and said, "Easy now, boy. It's me." But the bear didn't calm. With a sudden roar, Titan lunged. The crowd gasped as Steve hit the ground hard, his cry echoing through the arena. "Help! Somebody!" In the wings, Jake saw what was happening and shouted, "Get the iron pole, now!" Lisa fumbled for her radio. Her voice panicked as she yelled, "Trank team, get to the ring! Bear's gone rogue!" Steve groaned, blood staining his uniform. "Please, get him off me. Don't shoot him." Another trainer rushed forward with a steel rod, shouting, "Keep him back! Don't let him bite again!" "I'm going in! Cover me!" Jake yelled, sprinting into the ring. A loud blast from an air horn echoed through the tent, startling Titan. A tranquilizer dart flew and struck the bear in the shoulder. He staggered. From the sideline, Lisa whispered, "He's going down." Jake dropped to his knees beside Steve, gripping his hand. "Stay with me, Steve. You're okay." Steve's voice was faint now. It wasn't his fault. Now hear the story. What was meant to be another dazzling circus performance, filled with the excitement of roaring applause and breathtaking feats, quickly turned into a nightmare. A nightmare that would forever haunt those who witnessed it and leave the world questioning how such tragedy could unfold. This is the terrifying last moments of animal trainer Steve Horn. Before we dive into this shocking story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to you. Steve Horn, a dedicated circus animal trainer, known for his courage and talent, had spent over 2 decades working with some of the most unpredictable creatures on the planet. Wild animals. He wasn't just a performer, he was a true animal whisperer. Through patience, skill, and an innate connection with the animals, Steve gained the respect of both his colleagues and audiences around the world. From the moment he first began working with circus animals in his 20s, Steve knew that his life would be a constant battle to build trust with his animal companions. And in the world of wild animals, trust was a fragile thing. Steve's bond with his animals went beyond training. He often said that it wasn't just about control, it was about respect. It was this philosophy that made him one of the most successful animal trainers in the circus industry. The circus was Steve's world. For over 20 years, he had devoted his life to the art of animal performance. It wasn't just a job for Steve, it was his passion, his calling. Every performance, every show was a testament to his skill, his dedication, and the deep bond he shared with his animals. But there was one animal that Steve had grown particularly close to, the bear. He had worked with them for years, mastering the delicate art of bear training and developing an unparalleled understanding of their instincts. To many, Steve was considered the best in his field. The circus arena was where Steve truly thrived. The rush of applause, the roar of the crowd, the perfect coordination between trainer and animal. It was a thrill unlike any other. But behind every standing ovation, there was a quiet, unspoken understanding between Steve and his animals. One of his most trusted companions was a bear named Titan. Steve had worked with Titan for years, and the two had developed an almost telepathic connection. Steve could read the bear's movements, and Titan could anticipate Steve's every command. Their performances were a thing of beauty, fluid, powerful, and graceful. On stage, Steve was in control. The audience watched in awe as the bear performed its tricks. But off stage, it was a different story. Training these wild animals required a level of patience and understanding that few could fathom. Steve's relationship with his animals was built on trust and consistency, knowing that any misstep could result in disaster. In the days before the tragedy, Steve had been more focused than ever, working tirelessly with Titan in preparation for an upcoming performance. But no one knew that something was wrong, that there was a storm brewing beneath the surface, and no one could predict what was coming. Training circus animals was not just a job, it was an art. Steve Horn dedicated countless hours each day working with his bears, teaching them complex tricks that would leave audiences in awe. He didn't simply train them to perform, he trained them to understand. His method was one of patience, consistency, and respect. For Steve, the relationship he had with his animals went beyond commands and routines. It was a partnership, a dance of mutual trust. Each day, Steve would work with Titan, his most trusted bear. The process began slowly, simple tasks at first, like teaching Titan to move in time with Steve's movements. As time passed, the training became more intricate. Commands, hand signals, and the delicate balance of rewards and discipline shaped their performances. Every interaction with Titan was methodical, each gesture deliberate. Steve would reward Titan with food when he succeeded, and he would gently correct him when necessary. The trust between them grew stronger with each session, and with it, the bond they shared became unbreakable. Steve knew Titan's limits, and Titan, in return, understood Steve's expectations. But training an animal as large and powerful as a bear was never without its risks. Steve never underestimated the potential danger in working with such an unpredictable animal. He had seen it firsthand. Bears, though capable of learning, could never be fully tamed. Even the most skilled trainers knew that one wrong move could lead to disaster. Despite years of experience, Steve was always aware of the inherent dangers of his profession. Bears, like all wild animals, are unpredictable. Their behavior can change in an instant, driven by stress, fear, or simply the instincts that have kept them alive for centuries. Every day, Steve faced the reality that, despite his best efforts, there was always the possibility that something could go wrong. Every show, every practice session was a gamble. A bear could turn on its trainer without warning. An animal's temperament could shift from calm to volatile in seconds. Steve had witnessed other incidents during his time in the circus. A lion attacking its trainer, a tiger getting loose during a performance. Each of these close calls served as a reminder of the fragile line between control and chaos in the world of animal training. But Steve never let these incidents shake his resolve. He was determined to show the world the beauty of working with wild animals, pushing himself and his bears to new heights. It was a dangerous job, but Steve believed in the bond he had built with Titan. And for a time, that bond seemed unbreakable. On the fateful night of the tragedy, Steve Horn stood backstage, preparing for a performance that would change his life and the circus forever. The familiar hum of excitement filled the air as the audience settled into their seats. The soft clinking of bells, the rustle of costumes, and the far-off murmur of chatter grew louder as the showtime approached. It was an atmosphere Steve had come to know well, the buzz of anticipation before the curtain rose. The circus arena was set, the lights dimmed, and the music swelled, building the tension in the crowd. Behind the curtain, Steve took a deep breath, adjusting his costume one final time. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the responsibility that always rested on his shoulders. This was his moment. This was what he lived for. He was ready, and Titan, his beloved bear, was ready too. The performance began as it always had. The crowd watched in awe as Steve entered the ring, his eyes locked on Titan. The bear, towering and powerful, moved fluidly at his side, performing tricks with the precision and grace that had become their trademark. The applause echoed, and Steve's heart swelled with pride. But something was different tonight. Mid-performance, the first sign of trouble appeared. Titan, usually so cooperative, suddenly resisted Steve's command. He hesitated, his movements slower than usual, as though unsure. A ripple of tension ran through the crowd, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. Was it a moment of frustration? Or perhaps something in the crowd? A loud sound, a sudden movement that triggered Titan? The bond between man and animal had been strong for years, but tonight something had snapped. The bear's behavior shifted from hesitant to hostile. Steve's attempts to regain control only seemed to agitate Titan further. The connection they once shared was crumbling, and it was clear to everyone in the arena that this was no longer a performance. It was a battle for control. Titan's eyes, once calm and understanding, now glinted with an unpredictable fury. The crowd fell silent, sensing the danger in the air, as Steve struggled to calm the animal down. Titan began growling, his movements jerky and erratic, completely out of sync with the performance. Steve's voice, usually firm and commanding, now quivered slightly as he tried to command Titan back into position. In a split second, everything changed. The bear, in a fit of rage, lunged at Steve. It was over in a flash, faster than anyone could react. One moment Steve was standing tall, commanding Titan. The next he was on the ground, helpless against the bear's crushing weight. Titan's massive paws slammed down on Steve, pinning him to the ground as the audience gasped in horror. The circus, which had once been filled with laughter and applause, was now filled with screams and panic. The air was thick with fear, the sounds of the bear's growls and the frantic shouts of trainers and audience members alike. Steve fought to protect himself, but the bear's raw power was overwhelming. The chaos in the arena seemed to last forever. In the dim lights of the circus, the desperate attempts to pull Titan off Steve were futile. Steve's screams were drowned out by the roar of the audience and the heavy rhythmic pounding of the bear's attacks. It was an unimaginable scene, one that would forever be burned into the minds of everyone who witnessed it. In those final moments, Steve's years of training and his bond with Titan could do little to save him. The tragic attack unfolded in a matter of seconds, but for those who were there, it felt like an eternity. As the bear's fury subsided, the circus arena was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the panicked shouts of the crowd. In the blink of an eye, the scene had transformed from a lively performance to one of pure chaos. The audience, stunned and horrified, gasped in shock, many scrambling for the exits, fearing for their safety. Some ran for their lives, unsure of what had just unfolded before them. Trainers rushed into the ring, frantic, their faces pale with fear. They attempted to subdue Titan, who had been wrestled into submission by the team, but the damage had already been done. Steve Horn lay motionless on the ground, his body crumpled, badly injured, with no sign of movement. His once fearless demeanor now replaced with the grim reality of a life-threatening attack. Medics arrived quickly, rushing to Steve's side as they tried to revive him. The crowd watched in horror as paramedics worked tirelessly, their hands trembling as they tried to save a man who had given everything to his animals. The circus had come to a sudden and tragic halt, its usual vibrancy replaced by a grim sense of dread. Steve's unconscious body was carefully carried away from the ring, his breathing shallow, a far cry from the man who had once commanded the roar of the crowd with his presence. As medics continued their desperate attempts to stabilize him, the reality began to sink in. This was no ordinary incident. This was a tragedy. In the wake of the attack, many were left shaken, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Witnesses, trainers, and those who had been there that night spoke of the horror and disbelief that had gripped the arena. One witness recalls, "It happened so fast. 1 minute, everything was fine, and then, just like that, the bear turned on Steve. We never thought it would go that far." Another trainer, visibly shaken, shared, "Steve was always so calm. He knew the risks, but we never imagined something like this would happen. Titan wasn't just an animal to Steve. He was family. This was a nightmare we all hoped would never come true." An audience member who had been sitting near the front row described the horror. "I thought it was part of the show at first, but when I saw the fear in Steve's eyes, I knew something was terribly wrong. People were screaming, running. No one knew what to do." Doctors who treated Steve later explained that the injuries were catastrophic. Deep lacerations, broken bones, and severe trauma. Despite their best efforts, Steve's condition remained critical, a reality no one at the circus had prepared for. As the chaos continued, the circus quickly turned from a place of entertainment to a scene of tragedy, with no one knowing if Steve Horn would survive the brutal attack that had unfolded on stage. In the days following the attack, a full investigation was launched. Authorities moved quickly to understand what had caused the sudden aggression in a bear that had, for years, performed flawlessly under Steve's command. The central question lingered in everyone's mind. Was this a tragic accident, or was it a sign of something far more troubling behind the curtain of the circus world? Animal behavior experts were brought in to assess the scene. They studied Titan's history, his training routine, and any possible environmental stressors that could have triggered such a violent response. Footage from previous performances was reviewed, interviews were conducted, and every detail of the night was picked apart for answers. As the investigation unfolded, one unsettling theory emerged. Titan may have been suffering from chronic stress. Experts pointed to the mental toll of constant travel, loud noises, and the unnatural lifestyle imposed on wild animals in captivity. Bears, they explained, are not performers by nature. Being confined, trained, and expected to repeat routines under pressure can have deep psychological effects. A renowned animal psychologist stated, "It's not uncommon for animals in captivity to develop unpredictable behavior. When their needs aren't met, social, mental, physical, they become ticking time bombs." This wasn't just a random attack, it was a breaking point. The circus came under intense scrutiny in the aftermath. Questions arose about animal welfare, training standards, and whether wild creatures like Titan should be part of public entertainment at all. The once celebrated performances were now being seen through a different lens, a lens of exploitation and risk. Titan, the bear that had once drawn cheers from packed arenas, was now considered a threat. Discussions swirled about his fate. Some demanded he be euthanized, while others fought to see him move to a sanctuary. In the end, Titan was retired from performance and transferred to a wildlife facility where he would live out the rest of his days in isolation, far from the spotlight. Other animals in the circus faced similar fates. Several were pulled from the show, with promises of improved care or relocation. The industry itself was shaken, forced to confront uncomfortable truths about the cost of entertainment. The legal fallout was swift. Steve Horn's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the circus, alleging negligence and unsafe working conditions. The case drew national attention, sparking a renewed debate about animal rights and performer safety. Lawmakers responded by proposing tighter regulations around the use of animals in entertainment. Some cities and states began to ban wild animal performances altogether, citing the dangers to both humans and animals. Circus operators found themselves in courtrooms instead of arenas, defending practices that had gone unquestioned for decades. And while no amount of legislation could undo the tragedy, the attack served as a powerful catalyst for change. But for those who knew Steve Horn, the man who had loved and trusted his animals more than anything, the consequences were more than just legal. They were personal, a stark reminder that in the world of wild animals, trust is never a guarantee and control is always an illusion. Steve Horn's tragic end sent shockwaves through the circus world. A seasoned professional, admired for his dedication and skill, Steve was more than just a trainer. He was a symbol of the close, often misunderstood bond between human and beast. In the days that followed his death, memorials were held, tributes poured in from fellow performers, and colleagues spoke with emotion about the man who had spent his life walking the line between trust and danger. To some, Steve was a hero, a man who believed in the magic of the circus and the beauty of working with wild animals. To others, his story became a warning sign, a painful reminder that no matter how deep the bond, no animal is truly tame. His death forced an entire industry to pause and reflect. Safety measures were reevaluated, training protocols were questioned, and more importantly, the ethics of using wild animals for entertainment were brought to the forefront of national conversation. Steve's legacy, though born of tragedy, became a catalyst for change, one that would shape the future of circuses across the country. Steve Horn died doing what he loved, but his passing peeled back the curtain on a world many had only seen through wonder-filled eyes. It exposed a reality where behind every perfectly choreographed trick, danger simmered just beneath the surface, where the applause could drown out the warning signs until it was too late. Today, Titan lives in quiet solitude, far from the chaos of the big top. In a sanctuary surrounded by trees and silence, the roar of the crowd has been replaced with the rustle of leaves in the slow passage of time. As we remember Steve Horn, let us not forget the lesson his story left behind, that respect for nature must come before the desire to control it. What do you think about the ethics of animal performances in circuses? Do the risks outweigh the entertainment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story compelling and want to hear more true accounts of animal attacks and survival, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss any video. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Thank you for watching.